welcome on stage Sarah Rafferty.
How far away? Olga was very specific. Here. Oh, are we social distancing? Probably. Hi! Hi! Finally!
Thank you so much for having
So exciting. Look at what you did. Look at what you do. It's a lot, eh? You are amazing. 2,000 people. Bravo, you guys. Thank you all for being here. My love, this day is dedicated to change. Have you realized how the world has changed in the last 3 years? Actually, from the last time that we talked.
Yes, there's been a lot of change. Actually, the last time that you and I spoke, we were on Instagram because we were both in lockdown. And I think all of us, the whole world really was in lockdown, and we had a lot of time to reflect on all that we had lost, loved ones. But yeah, livelihoods, our sense of security, community, our sense of belonging, our sense of connectedness. I think that's why, I was definitely craving our conversation because I wanted to feel that connection again, right? And so now, and also at the same time in the U.S., we had a lot of us were unified in a collective awakening to the Black Lives Matter movement, and we were awakened to the depths of our division on January 6th when we saw the insurrection. So the question is, now that we're coming out of it, here we are. How have we changed? How have we grown? How are we going to move forward? How are we going to change our relationships to ourselves and to our work and to our loved ones and to our neighbors who maybe we disagree with and to the earth? And how do we move forward not just optimistically but with hope, because hope requires action, right?
That's true. And you've done plenty of things.
So, with your role as Donna. We all love Donna, right? We have a crowd, I told you. So nice. So, you have played one of the most lovable and inspiring female characters. But let's take things from the beginning. How did you decide to become an actress?
I was actually just having this conversation with my kids. It only just dawned on me, like the moment when it began, which was, I guess maybe it's because my kids are kind of in middle school, and I was reflecting on middle school, which is like one of the most awkward times in your life. And when I was in school, we had, in our English class, we had a public speaking requirement. We all had to learn a piece from literature, prepare it, memorize it, and perform it in front of the class. And so I went to my sister and I asked her what I should do, and she gave me this piece from Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, and of course I haven't read that book. So if there's any actors in the crowd, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to read the book. You're supposed to read the whole script. But it was a really emotionally manipulative piece. It was, a moment when Lenny realizes that he loves his pet mouse and he didn't understand his own strength and he killed his pet mouse. And I worked really hard on it and I learned my lines and I really explored being Lenny, which was an exercise of empathy. And the day came, I had one in my homeroom class and I had to go do it in front of the entire school, which felt like this, but it wasn't. And I did the piece and I remember seeing the mouse in my hand And then there was a response. And I had a moment where I could look out at the crowd, and I saw a few people crying with tears in their eyes. And I realized I had gone on this journey of empathy, and some of the people came with me. And I think that that was the moment when I realized that storytelling can be powerful and really connecting. And I was like 11 or 12. It's like such an awkward time.
Yeah, it is a wow. So,
I mean, it was probably awful, but...
no, it was not. I mean, obviously he had the talent.
What?
He had obviously the talent from a very young age. Yes, that's true. I don't know a single woman who didn't adore or felt inspired by the embodiment of Donna. Tell me about the process you followed to bring into life this amazing character. This woman that actually, she started as a PA, and she became a partner, and the end chief operating officer. I mean, you did it. How the hell you did it?
Well, I think that's what's really interesting about Donna, that she did start out as the PA.
Yeah.
You know, most of us are employees, not employers, so we could relate to Donna and who she was in the world. But what was interesting about her was her backstory. She never operated as a woman trying to fit into a man's world, because she didn't see it that way. It was her world. She thought that she was going to be an actor, but she ended up being this superstar executive assistant. And I think the interesting part of her journey was that she realized her superpower was her empathy, her ability to understand people, to walk in their shoes, to know what makes them tick, and that made her indispensable to the firm. So I feel like I grew a lot while I played her, and there was this, I don't know if I told you this, I think I may have when we were chatting, that there was this moment in 2016 after the election. I was on set the night, I remember the exact moment when Florida was called for Trump. It was the only time in my entire career that I had to step off of set and gather myself back together. And the next day I was talking to our creator, Aaron Korsh, and I said, I know that, you know, we've always said we're not really trying to give messages by creating this TV show, but whether we like it or not, messages are being received. And my experience of Trump being elected, there were many factors that went into it, but the one that really stuck in my craw was the unconscious bias that made it impossible for his opponent to be elected. And so I just went to Aaron with this raw emotion and just said, we just need to do something with Donna. Something has to happen. We need to tell a story about her progression. And I didn't know what that was going to be, but we went away on hiatus, and he came back, and he had the storyline of her
Wanting more,
and advocating for herself, and strategically getting the COO position, and the rough ride, the sexist rough ride that she had to take to get there. And you know, I realized, like, we can't solve unconscious bias overnight, but we could control this little tiny drop in the bucket towards normalizing seeing women advocate for themselves and ascend to positions of power and break the glass ceiling.
let's say that. And since we are in the fashion conference, obviously, let's talk about the fashion choices for Donna that need a special mention. I love that she was fierce and commanding, not by wearing like typical suits, but actually Rolando Verdes or Antonio Ferrari, you know, my favorite dress. She was dynamic but without sacrificing her femininity. How did the clothes help you becoming Donna?
Well, I'm a theater nerd, as you may have guessed from that story about middle school. So I always approach the wardrobe as costume.
Yes.
I love going to the theater. You know, when we are watching a play, you immediately know that when that dude enters from stage left and he's wearing the robe and the crown, you get who he is. open-hearted. We would actually choose, later on, we chose Donna's clothes based on what was occurring in the scene so that I could use them as tools. And I think you know that I wore a lot of Role Meringue. And that was kind of her uniform, and I was so thrilled I got to meet Roland, and he said to me, you know, I've learned a lot about how women like Donna, professional women, move in the world from watching Suits. It's true. And I got to say to him, hang on, I learned how Donna moves in the world by wearing your dresses. So I got to thank him for that, and I just love that symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, really, I mean, it's really touching to say that to the designer, actually.
Yeah, he gave me the confidence to get out of my own way. Because the one thing you don't want to do with a character is just bring yourself to it. You want to transform into them, you know? It was challenging to be the most confident woman in the world. I mean, who is she?
A very good one, obviously. But what's your relationship with fashion in real life?
Oh, well, that's constantly evolving. When I think back at different stages in my life when I just saw pictures of myself in 1988 at my prom. So my relationship to fashion was close to my relationship to my parents' draperies. That was horrendous. And then I was just recently rummaging in the garage for a pair of cowboy boots for my daughter. I've saved a couple of things over the years, and I found my Doc Martens and my motorcycle jacket that I bought in 1992 when I did my junior year abroad in New Orleans studying acting. That was like the first thing I did when I got there. I got my Docs, my moto jacket, and I was like, I know who this very wild woman. And then Suits changed everything because it was like the most incredible education in the art form of fashion, with all that exposure over those 9 years to, you know, all these fashion houses. And of course I absconded with a couple of pieces, which I thought to hand down to the girls. I mean, I think you were wearing Dior last night. I can think of the dress that was Dior that I absconded with for my daughters because I know, you know, clothes are pieces of art. They're meant to be cherished and worn again.
That is also a set in which we find. That's a very strong and powerful message. Like all the ones that you are passing to the world. You've been very vocal with issues regarding women's empowerment in your career and in personal life. How would you describe the situation now in the film and the TV industry? I mean, especially for the female actresses. Did the Time's Up and Me Too movements make any difference so far? And how do we keep pushing through these changes?
Absolutely, those movements were incredibly powerful in terms of amplifying women's voices and women coming together and supporting each other. And I think in order to continue to make change, we just need to make sure that the people who are in the positions to make decisions care about these issues. I think it's an incredibly exciting time. You know, there are more women directing, there are more women executives, there are more women producing. We're hearing more women's stories, more diverse stories. And I know for me, for my part, as an actor, that's really, the only part that I really have control over is the moment-to-moment that makes it to the screen. So I am no longer interested in any way, shape, or form in telling tired tropes about women. I remember when we were on Suits, and you know, there was a lot of conflict on Suits, and whenever you know, two of the women had conflict, my female colleague and I always make sure that this isn't a catty scene. We're not doing that still, are we? And we didn't. For the most part, I don't believe that we did. I was also I'm playing a mom right now on TV, and I really think about each moment, you know, is this fair to the moms and the girls who are watching? I just want to make sure. I mean, if we're doing satire or comedy, let's play the tropes, but that's a different thing. So,
Yeah, it's totally different actually.
yeah. We have a responsibility to the audience, especially the young people who are watching and being informed by these stories.
You're absolutely right. I want to have my Donna describe how you all got to go so far.
Hi, Yola.
So, you have been a dedicated activist. Tell us a bit more about your preoccupations and the causes you are supporting and fighting for.
Well, I am an ambassador for Plan Canada, for their Because I'm a Girl initiative, and they work in the world to support gender equality and girls' rights in the entire world. And I'm also a long-time advocate for Alzheimer's, because you know that that's a cause that's near and dear to my heart.
Obviously, if you follow Sarah on Instagram, you can see that she's traveling a lot, especially for charities. Now, can you think of a moment that changed the way of thinking, like a specific trip that you went and it totally changed you?
Okay, there are many. I think I'm going to just go with the most recent. It was interesting. I had this wonderful invitation back in June to travel to Jerusalem to host the Genesis Prize Awards ceremony. And this year they were honoring Dr. Albert Bourla, who's the CEO of Pfizer, for his tireless work to get the vaccine out. And of course, when the organizers approached me, I was like, amazing, yes, thank you. Why the random suits? Like, why me? And I was so thrilled because Stan Holfeld said to me, you know, the room is going to be filled with scientists and doctors. And we know that you advocate for Alzheimer's, so this is an opportunity for you to do that. And I called my sisters and my mom and checked in because it was the first time that I said publicly that my father has Alzheimer's. I've always just spoken about my grandmother. But there's a lot of stigma still around Alzheimer's, and he may experience some shame around it. So we waited until a moment when he would not know. He's with us, but he would not know that that I did. So. That was a big moment.
Yeah, that's absolutely change-making, huh? So I can imagine that the person that made the difference to your life was your father or someone else.
Oh yes, well of course my parents, because my parents always valued education. My mother's a teacher. My parents are very intellectual, so they really invested in my education and supported me. And that's one of the reasons why I was interested when I had children, in Because I Am a Girl campaign, especially because there are 129 million girls worldwide who don't have access to education. So, and for me, when I think about the people that influenced me, it was my teachers. I mean, I remember in high school I was running to field hockey practice, and I was late, and I was in my cute little skirt, my pleats stick, and I ran across the lawn of the theater teacher, and he was raking up some leaves. He was really cool, and he wore all black. He was very intimidating to me. And he just kind of looked at me and said, "Rafferty, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Field. I'm so sorry I'm walking on your lawn, but I'm late for field hockey." He's like, "No. What are you doing?" And I sort of looked at him and huh? He's like, "Why are you on field hockey? You need to come to my play." And that's what I hope for all children, is that they have a teacher who sees them and helps them see themselves. It's not very easy. morbid, but it's on the tails of being COVID. If nothing else, we all learned that our most precious and valuable commodity is time. Because it's the one thing that every single one of us is going to lose. And so I do say to my kids, especially when I'm trying to get them off their screens, really think about how you're going to spend this valuable commodity of time, and on whom, and on what. I think that that's the most important thing, is that they feel a sense of purpose in the way that they spend their time.
We've talked a lot about power and the ability of understanding, our true self. When it was the first time that you understand your own power, that you would actually make a change to people, even for your family?
I think that moment in junior high was really important, because I think that made me realize that I wanted to be a storyteller, and that maybe I wanted to not be me. I wanted to do it as somebody else, because that liberated me. But the interesting thing about playing Donna is that the show gave me a platform. And we were on the show, in the early seasons, it was kind of when social media was sort of starting. So
Yeah, it was pretty much at the beginning.
Right? So we got feedback in real time. And that was so tremendously valuable to me. And I'm not trying to exclude the men, but I've got to tell you what I heard from women just inspired me so much, the experiences that they were having in response to the show. So I guess that's it.
Well, it's a good one. Tell me, your future plans. What are you planning to do now?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I have learned that trying to plan for the future
Obviously, it didn't work very good.
it doesn't always go our way, and it really stresses me out. It makes me anxious. So what I'm trying to do is get more present, because I don't want to miss the good stuff. My kids are growing up so fast that I just want to really be present to all the good that's happening now, instead of being busy planning for the next thing.
You know that my team loves you, especially Elena, sitting somewhere over there. Yes, Elena. So, she wanted to know an iconic role that you want to portray in the near future, or your imagination, or on stage, whatever.
That's such a great question. I hope that I can work forever and play many, many roles that make me grow and hopefully in some way be of service to an audience. I guess maybe because I'm not a writer and I'm not a producer, I don't think about what that role is. And it's not necessarily always this idea of the strong woman. When we were doing press, a lot of the times, the three of us ladies from the original company of Suits would always be asked about portraying strong women on TV. And that was super cool. But I also think it's really important to see all kinds of women, to see us in all states and every story about us. All bring it.
Well, since you really love traveling, tell me, this was your first time in Greece? Yes. Tell me what were you planning to do?
I'm going to Greece tomorrow.
Oh, that's nice. So you're going to tell us anything?
I have a good guide.
You have a good guide, that's true.
And then I'm going to come back.
You're going to come back.
I'm going to come back as soon as I can.
You didn't have it. You had a lot to say, actually. You didn't. Where was Sophie Acropolis yesterday?
I saw Big Rock.
Yes, from Gregor the
But how
Town.
close can I get to it?
Very So, my love, it was such a huge pleasure having you here on stage. You promised me that you're coming back.
I promise. Thank you so much. Are you going to come to me?
Of course I'm coming to you. Actually, you're still in LA, right?
I don't know. Yes.
You're in LA. Kelly went to LA next week.